You're funny, or at least you can be. Steve Martin, Tina Fey, Bo Burnham, they've all mastered joke writing, but now technology is changing the game. I'm trying to develop some comedy resources to help comedians level up. It revolves around what I call the Joke Writers Lab. I've spent decades refining my writing skills in general, and now jokes are in focus for me. So I've built and am continuing to build a suite of free tools that anyone can use. You want to know more? Stay tuned to this episode of the Messed Up the Setups podcast and watch me write jokes on the spot in real time and learn about these resources.
Everything seems so messed up, but it's just our setup.
Welcome to the Messed Up the Setups podcast. I'm comedian Michael Halcomb, and today I want to put a few resources on your radar that'll help with joke writing. And then I'm going to write some jokes. So the first, you're already on it. This podcast, the podcast Messed Up the Setups, breaks down how successful jokes work. And I talk with other comedians all the time. And I do writing tutorials. And I give you sort of backstage access to a lot of my writing sessions. All right. So this is stuff straight from real comedians, working comedians. Second, the tools to help you write and brainstorm, which I featured on this site and I want to feature again, can be found for free at my website, right? So I'm going to share that with you right now, and you're going to be able to use that. So what you're going to do is go to, if you're watching, you're going to be able to see this on your screen. You're going to go to michaelhalcomb.live. And when you get there, you're just going to scroll down. Now, if you're on a tablet or a phone, you might have to hit a menu or something. But under the social tab or section of the website, you're going to scroll all the way down and you see a link to the Joke Writers Lab. Click that and boom, it's going to open a new page. And here are a bunch of free resources for you to use. These are great tools for writing jokes and timing yourself, challenging yourself as a joke writer. These are all free. So I just want to put these on your radar, and I'm gonna write some jokes myself here in a little bit, but this is all free. The third thing that I want to put on your radar, right? So this is the Joke Writers Lab that we're looking at right now with all these free resources, is a companion page to this, and it's over on Facebook, and you can join this for free. It's the Joke Writers Lab Facebook group. Just facebook.com/groups/the Joke Writers Lab. You can go sign up for free. And I just started this yesterday. I'm recording this on 3/14/25. I started this, and you can see I actually just put an idea up here, and this is what we're going to work with today. But I was doing a new bit recently, and this idea came up for a different bit. What would have been the equivalent of ancient suicide hotline? What would you have heard when you talked to someone? So that's the idea we're going to work with today. And we got a little bit of commenting going on. We've only got 6 members in the group right now, so not a lot. Join, help us get that number up. Give your ideas, right? So for help, dial I, right? That's kind of funny. Dial an oracle. Press 1 for Judas, 2 for Socrates. Please, sir, put the sling and stone down. On the count of 3, slowly pull the sling away from your head. Okay. I. All right. So we're going to work a little bit more on that concept today. But go ahead and pause the video now and head over and join our Facebook page, our Facebook group rather. Again, you can see it is facebook.com/groups/the Joke Writers Lab. And I'm going to put a link to that on my website, and you should be able to access it from there. But go ahead, join us. It's free. And you can share your own ideas, help people, get people to help you punch up your jokes. I'm going to be involved in here. So this is going to let you test your jokes, give feedback, and improve in real time. Okay. So join us there. All right. Well, what's wild is these kinds of resources are really democratizing comedy. I mean, the internet has been democratizing everything for a long time, but these kind of resources are now starting to democratize comedy. You don't need to grind at open mics necessarily for years anymore, telling the same jokes to the same people over and over and over, wasting all your evenings, right? Now, anyone with a funny observation can craft it into something that connects with a lot of people. But here's a challenge: cutting through the noise, right? The digital revolution has completely transformed how comedy gets created. Instead of scribbling jokes alone, right? Today, comedians can collaborate. They can test material instantly. They can reach global audiences or other comedians from their homes. What used to take years now can happen in weeks or even days or even hours. And the funniest people, man, they aren't always on stage. Sometimes they're in these online communities and they're using digital tools. So join me, join us, join others on my site, join others on the Facebook group, on this podcast. I want you to get involved. All right. So with that said, I'm going to do some joke writing now. Definitely excited to do this. So let me pull up a document and we're just going to run with that idea. I haven't written anything else other than what you saw in the Facebook group on this. So this is all live, all real time, all on the spot. So let me pull this doc up and we'll get going. All right. So the idea is this: ancient suicide headlines. And I'm going to see if I can get anything out of this. An idea that just came to mind is I'd like to see like a transcript of like a 911 call or a suicide hotline transcript. So I'm actually going to Google that suicide hotline transcript and see. All right. So here we go. It pulled something up straight away. So I'm going to share this tab. All right. Sample suicide intervention script. This is for a high risk student. All right. So this one says, "Hello, Chris. I want you to know I'm sorry for your loss. How are you doing? I just can't seem to stop thinking about Susan killing herself." Man, this goes dark quick. All right, so this is long. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this first bit and I'm going to paste it back in the document as sort of a sample. So I don't know if this is going to work. It's just an idea I had. I usually don't write this way, but this came to mind. So I'm going to try it. So here's the, all right. So I'm going to break this down. I'm going to see if we can sort of like mimic this just a bit. All right. So ancient suicide hotlines. You'll remember that from the Facebook group, we had like put the sling and stone down. Right. So that's funny, referencing the David and Goliath thing. Is the sling loaded? That kind of thing. Yes, it's loaded. All right. So I'm going to play with this idea, the David and Goliath thing. This is a biblical thing. And so we'll just do the psychologist and then let's do David. So the psychologist is talking to David and says, "Hello, David." So we don't really have an introduction. They don't start like, so we'll just sort of pick up mid-conversation. I'm going to try to base the comedy around this. We'll see how it goes. "Hello, David. I understand you're not doing too well. How are you?" Or yeah, we'll just say, "How are you?" And David says, and we're just going to follow this. We're not going to try to be funny right now and just mimic it. "Okay, I guess. I just can't seem to stop thinking about Goliath, about how I killed Goliath." All right. The psychologist then says, "I understand it must be painful." Now, David didn't care about Goliath, but so we're going to change it. "I understand it must be painful to have to remember," something like that. "Can you tell me," we'll just say, "Tell me more. Tell me more about your feelings." All right. So, and then David says, "I just can't help thinking that if it wasn't for me, Goliath would still be alive. Just can't live with the guilt." The psychologist says, "So not only are you dealing with the death, you're also feeling guilty." All right. And I think is that all we have? All right. And then David, yes, begins to cry. All right, this is interesting because initially I was just thinking like, okay, a joke about suicide hotlines, ancient suicide hotlines or their equivalent. But now what this is doing is it's actually taking a familiar biblical story and sort of like flipping it on its head or telling it in a different way. And so this actually is taking my joke a completely different direction. So my idea, so we'll do idea, premise, setup, right? So remember the idea or the topic is just in general what we're talking about. So in this case, it's going to be David. We don't really think about that. We just know the story. David killed Goliath. He was victorious. But we never think about, oh, did David have some remorse afterward? Like what was going on internally with David afterward? How did he get through, process his emotions, as we say these days? So David's mental, emotional state after killing Goliath. Or say we can just, David reflect after killing Goliath or on killing Goliath. Yeah. So that now is the idea. So again, the typical story is David's this victor, this conqueror. Now a premise is it's a negative opinion about the topic. So the traditional idea has been, oh, David is sort of excited about doing this and feels victorious. Well, a more negative premise is David feels sad and guilty killing Goliath, not victorious. Okay. So again, that premise is a negative opinion about the idea of the topic. So now we can have a setup what we'll probably have here is a number of setups and a number of punches, but I want to get a setup to lead into the joke. So the way that I want to set this up is something like, sorry, there's noise out there. The way that I want to set this up is, David is like, well, I'll set it up by saying the typical way we think about this, or nobody has ever thought about, or have you ever thought about what happened in the aftermath of David killing Goliath? Our culture has gotten soft. If the whole David and Goliath thing happened today, so how can we flip that? How can we be like, if a modern counselor had been around to talk to David in antiquity? So there's the angle I want to take. That's the angle I want to take. Yes. So even that maybe would then change the premise. So we'll do premise B, premise A here. Premise A. Premise B is something like, I'm glad modern counselors. Oh, here we go. If modern counselors had been around in David's time, things might have gone very differently. That's it. That's the angle I want to take. Right. So that's the main premise I'm going to use. I'm going to move this down out of the way. So if modern counselors had been around in David's time, things might have gone very differently. That's the premise. So the setup, we all know the David and Goliath story, but what about the aftermath? Okay, so David kills Goliath with a sling and a stone, and everyone celebrates. That's the ancient story. Now, if modern counselors had been around, things might have gone very different. So that's it. So that's my setup. It's a long setup. I probably want to shorten the words there. I probably want to shorten the setup. We all know the David and Goliath story. David kills Goliath with a sling and a stone, and everyone celebrates. That's the ancient story. Now, if modern counselors have been around, things might have gone very differently. And so we can just put a simple punch right here. Things might have gone very differently. And so we want to put like a transition here. Then I want to use that template for the conversation. Things might have gone very differently. We'll say this: David would have needed time. So I'll put this here. David would have needed time to process his emotion. And that kind of like picks on us, our culture a little bit. And then that lets me move into the joke. So we all know the David and Goliath story. David kills Goliath with a sling and a stone. Everyone celebrates. That's the ancient version, the ancient story. Now, if modern counselors have been around, things might have gone very different. Things might have looked and sounded very different. David would have needed time to process his emotions, right? And then a tag. David, can you imagine David calling an ancient suicide hotline? All right, can you imagine David feeling guilty and calling an ancient suicide hotline? So again, just so you know, if you haven't watched or listened to the podcast yet, I always separate my setup from my punch with 3 dots followed by a space. So the punchline would be suicide hotline, put it here, an ancient suicide hotline. All right. And now we get into the act out. So we'll have to put something before this. So David, and then psychologist, hello? And we could give the ancient suicide hotline like an interesting or like a funny name, right? Hello. So the person answers. Oh, and then I want to do the press IV, that kind of thing. Or shalom. And in this case, the Roman numerals probably wouldn't work. So shalom. We'll do that. We'll leave that in there. It's kind of funny. Shalom. Welcome to what would be like some funny names for an ancient suicide hotline. So what are actual names for real suicide hotlines? I'm Googling that. So suicide and crisis lifeline. And this isn't making fun of any of this. These are all good and noble initiatives. It's adding a funny twist to an ancient story. I think suicide hotlines are obviously a good thing. So depression hotlines, suicide, something like welcome to the ancient, I don't know. What if it's like acts, ancient, welcome to the ancient? Yeah, I don't know. So this is interesting. So I want to work through this. Names for ancient suicide hotlines. The ancient, when I think of ancient, I think of like rock, cave, sword, fire, sling, stun. What about like this mothers against like drunk driving, mothers against suicide, mass, mothers against slings and stones? Let us play with that. Welcome to mass, mothers against slings and stones. Here, ancient suicide. All right, sorry if there's beeping in the background. Some work going on out there, but maybe you can't hear it. All right, so we got that. I'd like to punch that up, but for now, I'm just going to leave it. So, welcome to Mass. Mothers to do a Mass. Ancient mothers against slings and stones. Your local help hotline. Your local prevention hotline or intervention. All right, so we're going to leave that there. I don't think that's that funny, but it's something, right? And then David says, "Oh, what's your name?" Hello, David. I understand you're not doing too well. How are you? Just can't seem, just killed a man. Just killed a man. Goliath. I'm sad. Everyone else is cheering. I understand it must be painful to have to go through something like that. Tell me more about your feelings. I just can't stop thinking that if it wasn't for me, well, I'll just say, if it wasn't for me, Goliath would still be alive right now. I just can't live with the guilt. So not only are you dealing with death, you're also feeling guilty. Yes. All right. So this isn't actually that funny right now. Gotta punch it up. And this may take me some time to do this because this is a heavy topic and gotta be careful about how you do this. And because it's heavier, it can be more challenging. All right. I just want to, for the sake of time, I'm gonna bring in one thing here and try to use it. Actually, two things. The first is an idea from he calls it this playfully inappropriate theory, right? So the idea is just to ask the question or think about what is a playfully inappropriate. And so we're not going over the boundary, but we're not being like too naive. So what's a playfully inappropriate thing to say here? That's the first thing I want to hold in mind. The next thing is I recently heard about Anthony who's talking about third thought. So the idea is that when thinking of a punchline, like the first thought would be something that pretty much anybody, even a non-comedian, could come up with a slightly funny response. So I'm calling that level one, thought one, right? Level two. So, and I'm associating that with just the gut, like the gut reaction that anybody would have, like in terms of making a joke. The second thing would be then we're add emotion onto. So move from the gut to the emotion, the heart. So what would be something make another person feel more deeply or intensely with this next punchline. And then the third is you take it to the head, the third thought, right? So everybody's going to have essentially that first thought. Fewer people will have the second thought. Almost no one would have that third thought, maybe other comedians, right? So you're trying to get to that third thought to make the surprise bigger. So the response here that we could give from David. Hello, David. I understand you're not doing too well. How are you? I'm sad. I just killed a man, Goliath. I just killed a man, Goliath. I'm sad, but everyone else is cheering. So this raises the question, what are they cheering? Right? That we could make that the punchline. So the level one, the first thought, the gut reaction would be like something like, yay, down with Goliath. That isn't we could do a pun here. Like level one would be a lot of puns. Everyone else is cheering, oh, Goliath down. What would be some more puns? Like a giant. Yeah. Goliath down. Goliath down. Goliath down. Yeah, we'll leave it there. All right, so that's just an initial pun. Level two, what could they be cheering? I'm sad, but everyone else is cheering. Goliath down, Goliath down. I just killed a man, Goliath. I'm sad, but everyone else is cheering. Goliath down. Maybe in this one, the person on the phone is the psychologist actually. That's a giant accomplishment. There we go. And so I want to do this sling and stone thing. So we've moved from the gut reaction to something a little more, that's a giant accomplishment, emotional. Then we try to move to level three here, the third thought. It's a giant accomplishment. We can add another one. A big deal. Huge. So get like 3 tags there. Okay. Yeah. So the level 3 would be dealing with the sling and the stone. Oh, here we go. So this is the psychologist. David, are you still sling? I'm going to need you to, all right. David, are you still holding the sling? Yeah. Is it loaded? Is it loaded? Yes. This is what we need you to pull the sling away from your head, put it on the ground. There we go. All right. So, and actually we could actually just use these all right here. Like these could be jokes, right? So, Shalom, welcome to a Mass. Ancient Mothers Against Slings and Stone, your local intervention hotline. What's your name? David. Hello, David. I understand you're not doing too well. How are you? I just killed a man, Goliath. This isn't a punchline. I just killed a man. Goliath. I'm sad, but everyone else is cheering. Goliath down. Goliath down. So we'll do a repeat. So we'll make this the punchline. Goliath down. All right. That's a giant accomplishment. That's a giant accomplishment. A big deal. That's huge. All right, there we go. And then level 3, the psychologist. David, are you still holding the sling? Yes. And then here's a joke punch. Is it loaded? People would laugh at that. Yes. I'm going to need you to pull the sling away from your head and put it on the ground. All right. So there we go. Now we could do the same thing and punch each of these lines up. So this is the beginning of a bit. And I think we've got something to work with here. All right. Remember to check out michaelhalcomb.live and scroll down and click the Joke Writers Lab link. Go use those resources. And remember to subscribe to this podcast. And after you do that, go join our Facebook group, facebook.com/group/ is it group or group? Facebook.com/group with an S. Facebook.com/groups/the Joke Writers Lab. Love to have you on there and joining us. All right. I am comedian Michael Halcomb, and that's it for this episode of Messed Up the Setups. Hope that helps.
It's all messed up, yeah. Everything's messed up. We're going from this mess up to the next setup. Everything seems so messed up, but it's just our setup.